honor and privilege to introduce to you Dr. Mahalia A. Hines, an educator, retired principal, author, speaker, and board president for Common Ground Foundation. Dr. Hines is a distinguished leader in education renowned for her unique insights and extensive experience spanning over 45 years. In 2017, Dr. Hines joined the board of directors for the Obama Foundation, contributing her expertise to education programs and supporting educators globally. Her speaking career began over 30 years. Dr. Hines is a highly sought-after keynote speaker and panelist at prominent conferences. She has spoken to over 300,000 educators, parents, and IT professionals nationwide. She has appeared on various national and local media outlets, including The Jennifer Hudson Show, The Chicago Today, and WVON 1690 AM in Chicago. Recently, Dr. Hines returned to the speaking circuit after publishing her first book, Tomorrow's Children: How to Raise Children to Stay Human in a High-Tech Society. This insightful guide offers timeless strategies for parents and educators navigating the challenges of raising children in a digital age. As the proud mother of Grammy, Oscar, and Emmy-winning artist Lonnie Rashid Lynn, professionally known as Common, Dr. Hines seamlessly blends her personal and professional expertise on raising children in her book and speeches. Dr. Hines received a PhD from the University of Illinois, an MBA from Northeastern University, and a BA from Central State University. I now introduce to some and present to others Dr. Mahalia A. Hines.
Good afternoon. First, let me thank you for staying, because I know that was a long line, and I really appreciate that, who were here for the book signing. Often when I listen to the introduction from my bio, that is what I've done. It is not who I am. When I think about who I am, first and foremost, I'm a Christian. Second, I'm a mother. I'm a teacher. And then I'm a wife. My husband always say, how did I get to be fourth? I say, well, you got to work on that. Ask yourself that. But I'm happy to be home because I've been a member of Trinity, Lord, over 30-some years. So I'm excited to be here. One of the things, I still attend conferences. Though I'm retired, I like to stay current on what's happening. So I've been attending the ASU conference for over probably about 8 or 10 years. It's one of the largest conferences, technology conferences in the world. Now they have well over 15,000 people who attend. When I started, it was about 500, and there were few educators, if any. And so one of the things my friends and I did was push to make sure educators were there with those who were creating technology. Last year, when I went, I was real excited. It was a lot of good technology going on and new for me. So I was running from one session to the other. When I got home and I started to look at my notes and think about some of the things I had seen, what really concerned me, there was no human element. And I started to say, okay, how can we have high tech without high touch? And that's going to be a real problem in this world for our children. And no matter retired or what, I continue to work for our children in whichever way I can. I do a lot of consulting and working with adults who are working with children. So I decided I need to meet with some of these technology firms and let them know what I'm seeing, because they're the ones who are selling all of these educational materials to our schools. And then it dawned on me after talking to a few people that they wasn't going to talk to me. How was I going to get in to talk to the really big technology firms? And so then as I began to think, I met a young man named Rajan when I was visiting the conference. Later on, I found out that Rajan created the Google app, AI for Google, uh, Google Meet, you name it. He worked for them for 17 years. And then he left because he wanted to do something that he felt would make a difference in the lives of children also. He also recognized that what he was doing, while it was great economically and great for the world, it wasn't necessarily going to be great for children. And so he began to tutor me, and I learned a lot about technology and AI from him. I was very surprised to know that AI was created over 20 years ago. We just didn't know, and we're just now getting it. There were some other things that I really don't have the time to share with you now that's very important. I think you really need to research how AI is used. And I really talk to teachers a great deal because AI is also used in department stores to determine who might be a thief. And you know that when they start identifying who's stealing, what do the thieves look like? And many of us, as I said, don't know that. I don't think that technology is bad. I think that how we use it will make a difference. First and foremost, I'm finding too many of us are consumers and not creators. I say to you who are grandparents or who have children, technology is not bad. It's how they use it. The other thing is that you've got to spend time with your kids and know what they're watching. And the very first thing you ought to do is begin to use your imagination as adults. Raising children must be intentional today, more so than it's ever been. You have to know what you want your child to look like when they're grown. And most important, you need to like them. All of us love our children, at least I hope we do. We love our grandchildren, but do you like them? And what role do you have in making sure that they're growing up to be adults that you like? I would start off with my imagination. That's one of the things that the Bible says. The people for lack of imagination will perish. So one of the things is we need to look at, what do you want your child to look like? What are the values you want them to have? Whether you're a teacher or you mentoring a child, what are you showing them that you want them to be? Because they're only going to be what they see. You can say whatever you want to say, but what's most important is what you do. Okay? So first of all, let's start off imagining. What do you want? What are the characteristics, the values? You want them to respect? Do you want them to love? Do you want them to be kind? Do you want them to be generous? If that's the case, are you kind? Are you generous? If you want them to show respect, are you showing respect? Are we teaching them like the way I came up? When I went to see my grandmother, we knew that we were going to wash dishes or take out the trash, or we were going to do something to help them. Are we doing that now? How often do you take your children to their grandparents' houses and tell them and show them what they should be doing out of respect for them? And guess what? If you're not doing it, they won't know how to do it for you. So it's very important that whatever you want them to be, you begin to model that. And you know, I don't think it's anything that's in the book that is genius or anything like that. I think it's how I was raised. I think the old school rules still apply. I think they still apply. They haven't gone away, but some of the younger people who are raising children feel that they don't want to be the way their parents were, that their parents were too strict. And so they don't want to raise their kids that way. And some of these very parents who don't want to or who said are now looking for help. Many of them are saying, I don't know what to do with my children. It broke my heart the other day. I was talking to one of my friends at her daycare, and it reminded me of when one of the parents was bringing her child to school. Now, we're talking about a 4-year-old little girl, 4 or 5-year-old little girl, and she wanted to wear these shoes to school. And because she couldn't wear them, she didn't want to go. So they ended up taking the baby, I call her the baby, to school in her pajamas. And when she got there, they couldn't even get the young lady to get out the car. And finally, they sent for the teacher to come out and get her. Now, that bothered me, that the mother couldn't get the child out of the car, that they had to send for a teacher. Now, some of you are looking surprised, but that's more the case than you realize. There are many parents who cannot get their children to behave. How many times have you been sitting in church and to get a child calmed down, you see a young parent give a child a phone or give them an iPad? They bring them with a tablet so that they will behave. Your mother, and I know my mother didn't have to have a tablet. As a matter of fact, she had the look. And some people say that I've been blessed with the look. I think I have, because even when I'm in church sometime and I see children acting up, I'll give them the look, and they seem to sit up. So I don't know what happened to the look, but I know whether we use the look or not, we need to bring something back that says this is not the way you behave. And as I said, what's most important is what you do. You cannot tell children don't curse, and they hear you cursing out a relative or a representative on the phone or being very rude to them. And then you go around and say, don't do what I do what I say. That doesn't work. That doesn't work. As your children get older, you really find out the impact you have on what they're doing or what you did. Because while you thought they wasn't watching, you look up and you see the impression that you've had on them, whether it's good behavior or bad behavior. You're able to see that. Teach them to be grateful. Teach them that you don't have to do everything you do for them, okay? If you bring a child into the world, I think you're supposed to take care of them. You're supposed to feed them and take care of them. You don't necessarily supposed to take them to baseball practice. And so they need to know that I'm doing this because I love you. This is something special, and you need to say, thank you, Daddy, or thank you, Mama. As it saddened me to see how the little girl act, it also made me happy at this same daycare center that my goddaughter owns, that I heard one day a little girl, when her father dropped her off, she said, thank you, Daddy, for bringing me to school. I love you. Those are simple things we can teach. Are we doing that now? If your child cleans up their room, are you saying, thank you? Thank you for cleaning up the room. If they help you, even if you tell them, set the table, do you say thank you? You did a great job. When you do that, they learn to say thankful to you, be thankful to you, and say thank you. There are various activities that I suggest online and in the book that can also bring this to life. What about a thankful tree? What about a gratitude tree? What about when you wake up in the morning, they hear you say, I'm grateful to you, God, because you woke me up. I'm grateful because I could see. I'm grateful because I woke up in my right mind. I'm grateful that I could walk to the bathroom on my own. Let them hear you say what you're grateful for. Model the behavior you want them to see. And also, as I said, don't let them take some of the things that you do for granted. The other thing is you need to talk with your kids, not at them. Many of us, as young parents, and that's mainly who I'm talking to, and some of those who are not so young, don't talk at your kids, talk with them. Now, there is a difference, and the child ought to know the difference, and it depends on the age. I can remember when Rashid was about 11 or 12, and I had told him, go in the room and make up your bed. And he said to me, Mama, soon as I finish watching this on TV. So I had to explain to him that that was not a request. That was a command. And there's a difference. Let me tell you the difference. When I tell you to do something, you do it. If I ask you, then you have some options you can ask me about it. This was a command. Go make up your bed. Okay, period. The other thing that we need to teach kids is how to treat other people and also how to be grateful for what you have. One of the things I also had to do, and I have to refer back to some of the things that I did in order. Once I remember when he wanted some shoes that cost more than the shoes I was wearing. I said, oh, no. That's not going to work because I'm the one working. And then he went on to explain to me about his friends and how they had. So what I did was take him on a field trip to a hospital, a children's hospital, so he could see what other children were going through. We also went to a shelter. He didn't ask me for those kinds of shoes or those things anymore. He became much more grateful for what he had, okay? So again, we are modeling that behavior. I won't go through every section that's in the book because we actually don't have the time, but I will say one of the most important parts for me and controversial for many people is you are not your child's friend. You are the parent. I would tell young people, I speak to a lot of young parents and teachers. That's very important too. As a teacher, you're not the child's friend. You're the teacher. And when you cross that line, it's hard to cross back over. So unless you're very comfortable with that, don't cross that line. I tell young parents who ask me, some of them have said, I'm friends with my child. They're my best friend. Well, yeah, Rashi is now too, but he's almost 50. Well, he's older than 50, Lord. But we didn't become good friends until he was about 35. We didn't drink together. We don't do that. You know, I can't even remember, and I think it had to be at a party or celebration, that he even took a drink in front of me. Because, as I said, we are not friends. It is my responsibility to be the adult and to raise you. And so when one of the young people in the audience said, why can't, I be a friend to my child? And I said, it depends on the age. But when kids are like 12 and 13 and 5, no. No ought to mean no. If God intended for children to raise themselves, they'd have come here grown. And since they didn't, it's your responsibility to be the adult and to raise them. So, what I would like to do is conclude at this time. I would love to go through every chapter, but we'll get home and ask you if there are any questions that you would like to ask me. Okay, go ahead, Monica. Yeah.
Dr. Hines, I love the name of the book. I think that what we're missing is our connection to being human. I think that I agree with you. Technology is not the enemy, but we definitely have to be aware of how it's being utilized. So I'm so glad that you wrote this book. The other thing I want to ask you, though, is almost every person I know who has a child, especially in these teen years, which is a lot of people, they're in some form of crisis with their children. And I mean, children fighting parents, children doing what they want to do, going, if you say no, they say, I'm doing what I want to do anyway. And I'm wondering if we're thinking about, and I think a lot of people come to me because they look at me as like a part of the faith community, the spiritual world, and they're wondering what they've done wrong, but they're also wondering, is this a spiritual attack? Is this something that is just happening to our children? Is it infiltrating from the media and from all these different avenues? Literally, while sitting in here, I just got a message from a friend whose child, she just had a physical interaction with her daughter. So, but that's not even uncommon anymore. And so I'm wondering, how do we touch the hearts of our children so that even when it seems like we try to instill those things, like I know how I was with my grandma, and it doesn't seem to work to say to them what I did or what how I grew up, because I always get this pushback, well, that was then, or they get that type of pushback. And it feels like the voices of the world are so much louder now than our voices as parents. So how do we become stronger, more cohesive? And maybe that's not the right way to ask the question, but I trust that you have an answer.
One thing, I think you have to start early. It doesn't mean that you can't change a child as they get older, but it's much easier if you start earlier. There were 3 rules of thumb in my house and in my schools and when I taught children. Number 1, I was the adult. And I know that sounds simple, and it is. You must be the adult. You must set the example. You must say no and mean no. Do you know how many times I have talked to parents, and even I was talking to my niece about this, where she would put her son on punishment for something that he did, and then she'd go out and buy him something. I think you have to be very clear on your values and your rules, and they have to know them. If you've been teaching values of respect and kindness to a child from the time they're 6, I think it would be very rare that they would raise up against you. Also, while I don't talk about it in the book as much because I don't want to go to jail or get sued, but I think children ought to fear something. That doesn't mean you have to put your hands on them. I feared my mother more than I feared the streets. And that fear came from, I didn't want her not to love me. I didn't want her not to like me. So I did what she said. It wasn't about things. I think you have to say what you mean and do what you say. I think you have to model behavior, and I think you have to let them know what's not acceptable here. I can remember Rashid was probably about 12 or 13, and he was tired of coming to church because if you lived in my house, You came to church every Sunday. That was the rule of his stepfathers, too. And so he said, I'm going to live with my father. I'm tired of coming to church. And while it hurt my heart, I packed his stuff, put the suitcase on the front porch, and bought a ticket. And I meant that thing. It wasn't, and maybe it should have been, it wasn't about church as much as you going to do what I say if you live here. And I don't think that we're doing that anymore. I think that we think we are, but I don't think that we have, and wouldn't call them old time values or rules. I just think that's how you act as a human being. You respect each other. You say what you mean. When you need to say no, you say no. I just can't believe how many kids are being disrespectful now. But that had to come about as a young age. It was a little girl back there today. She was a sweet little girl, and her mother was trying to get me to sign the book, and she had wanted to say something earlier. And then I guess she got bashful or whatever she got. And the mother said, well, get up off the table and say something to Dr. Hines. The little baby didn't move. I looked at her and I said, get up off the table, sweetie. Come on around and give me a hug. And then stand up as pretty as you are. I don't think we talk to our kids like that. Even if they're acting up at a young age, we go into a corrective mode only instead of, you're beautiful. You wouldn't act like that. I don't expect you to act like that. I love you. How often do we say that? So I would say start at an early age. Start using words of kindness and respect. Start showing love and start disciplining. I don't know if that makes enough sense. Okay. Any other? Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
First of all, thank you so much for coming. This has been truly a blessing even now. I'm coming to you from a different perspective. I'm an educator. And I wanted to go back, and I want your opinions about this, but I'm going to go back when my children were younger and how we used to sit at the dinner table. We didn't have the competition of computers or phones. We sat at dinner table and we just discussed our day. You know what you do today? Well, of course, there's somebody in their class that they didn't like. What did you learn? How was day? Good. I remember that word. It was good. Well, what is good? You know, so we had those conversations. And it looks like the students today, they don't have those type of conversations. And we are in constant competition with technology. It is enormous. And I know this is a high-tech society like you have in your book. I know this is something that we all need. The kids need this to be successful with AI and everything, but it's been truly a struggle just getting them to, my young men coming in the morning, good morning. They don't even look you in your eye. They looking down on the ground. I'm like, look up at me, baby, good morning. Or even something like good morning. Do you all know what good morning means? That means I'm wishing you a good morning. So good morning. Would you like to wish me a good morning? I teach 5th grade. So I have to go through those basic, I guess, mannerisms with them. And then also just the fact of the imagination too. Since everything is technology, even a research paper, you can just Google it. It's not like you could go through a book. Like what happened to books, you know? So everything is like online, and it's just really zapping their imagination, like you said. It's zapping their ability to have a conversation. I want to just talk to you. I hadn't seen my grandchildren for like 2 weeks. That seemed forever. But when they came over, I said, I want to interview all of y'all. So everybody had a turn in the living room. And I called them in there and I said, what's up? What you been up to? What's up? And then, well, how's school? Who's the girl you like? And what's bothering you? Anything bothering you want to tell grandma? Anything you want to share with me? And one of my grandsons said, well, mom and dad had an argument, and I'm worried about that. My daughter and her husband didn't even know. But it's that conversation. And I'm looking you face to face. Look at my eyes. And there's no phone. And I'm showing you that I care. We talking. Me and you talking. So maybe you could suggest to me as an educator, how can I continue to bring that in my classroom? And I'm not even going to bring up the parents. There are worse. That's the problem. Your child don't bring it home great. Oh, they said they did it. Your child's disrespectful. Oh, well, they said someone did this. And it's just a constant struggle. We don't even have the parents that are supporting us. So you have a 10-year-old where you're telling them that I'm going to call your mom, and he shrugs his shoulders.
Well,
so,
two things.
Thank you.
Who do you think created that competition with us and technology? Who do you think about it, who created the competition between adults, children, and technology? It was adults. How many, it amazes me when I hear sometimes adults and parents talking about children with technology when a child come up to their parent or and says, Mom, I want to ask you, wait till I get off the phone. Or when they come in the house, you got your laptop on or your computer on. And then you say they don't talk to you. How did they get the technology that they have? Why do babies 2 and 3 and 4-year-old have some type of pad that they're working with? And studies have already showed at that age how it affects their minds. And we don't know how it's going to really affect this generation until they grow up. We can only think about it. That's why we need to do something now. I was listening to the sermon this morning and talking about COVID. Well, COVID is gone, but guess what? We still got COVID behavior. Because we have children who not only are they not talking to you, they're not talking to other children unless they're on the phone or they're on the computer. Bring some of them into your home and watch how much they socialize with each other. They don't. Because we have created that society. And you will need to change that. Because if we don't change that, it's going to be a brand new world for you as senior citizens. I'm talking about the young parents. When they grow up, this is going to be a different world for them. And one of the things, when I was listening, really inspired today by Reverend Warnock, when he was talking about there still is a God. And I was thinking after the election, I really probably should have been more depressed than I was, but I felt like there still is a God, and I should be doing what I'm supposed to be doing. So what is the next steps for me to help the world? What is the next steps for me to help children who will help the world that I have to continue to live in? So I say to you, you are the adult. It goes back to you whether you're a teacher or not. And I guarantee you, whether you're a teacher or you're a parent, the students will behave like you. And the reason, and I'm embarrassed to say it, that we don't have the parents' support as teachers. We didn't have it when I was a teacher. And you know why? Parents weren't treated with respect. Teachers were at some kind of God level, and you know it when we were teachers. And so many parents were sort of embarrassed to come up to school and ask questions, and they weren't treated as nice as they should have been. And now we're looking for them to be our partners when we've created a culture where they were not respected. Their voice was not respected. We talked to them and not with them. And the majority of the time, we only seen them or sent for them when the children were in trouble. That's why, as a principal, I required that every teacher call every child in their room, every parent, and introduce themselves the first 2 weeks of school. So it would not be the case that the first time that you heard from me was when your child was in trouble. So I say, keep saying good morning. They'll say good morning. Eventually, you do what you want them to do. Not only do you say it to them, say it to the other teachers. Say it to the lunchroom helper. Say it to the janitor. Say it to the secretary. Let them know everyone is important. Okay. Are there any other questions? Okay. We can take 2 more. Okay.
Good afternoon. This has been insightful. My question is, do you recommend an age where children should start social media pages and social media profiles? I've come across some children as young as 6 and 7 who have YouTube pages and the such. So do you recommend an age level that would be appropriate for children?
Basically, I think not only is it the age, it depends on the child. But I definitely think no child under 10 should have a YouTube page. Really under 12, but they'll probably say I'm real old-fashioned. But there's some 12-year-olds who are much more disciplined, much more mature, and there's some 15-year-olds that don't need to have one. So I just said, it depends on your child. You can have 2 children and they're very different, coming up in the same household. So look at your child. Okay? It was one more here, and then that's really the last one. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
From another perspective, I have grandchildren that have dealt with a lot of instability throughout their entire lives. And a little over a year ago, they came to live with me and my husband because they became homeless, not through their mother's or father's fault, but they became homeless. They are teenagers. Aren't I lucky? What I find when there's instability, sometimes they have way too many options. So when you try to mete out discipline, and I've never laid a hand on my grandchildren, I will not, they're not my children. I will not lay a hand on them. But I do the look, and I have the tone of voice. But the options are, and this the last time they were in my house, this really bothered me, is that they don't like what we say. We don't like what my husband asked them a question, a very important question. Mom has them out of school because they didn't like the particular school. My husband said, asked the youngest, why are you not in school? And he pressed her a little bit. He wasn't out of line. She immediately went and called her mother, and they were out of my house. They have options, which I think is not good. What I've decided, and it's going to be really hard, is you can't come back to my house again and stay. You can't. Unfortunately, they end up sometimes going crisis to crisis. As a grandmother, I can't help but step in, and because they're children. Any advice you can give me in terms of what to do when the next crisis arises so that they don't think that my house is just a flop house and you can just fly up and leave when you don't like what you're told?
I think the best thing to do is get some professional help, some professional therapy for them and you as a family. And I'm recommending that because every situation is different. So my answer may not work, and I don't even proclaim to have an answer for everything. And where we didn't use professional help before, I say use it. And it's a lot of it that's free. Maybe the church is able to recommend some professional help for you.
Yeah, I would doubt that they are going to do that.
Okay.
They're not
But you
gonna do
don't know. Just try. Just try. And let it not happen rather than you not try. Okay? It was
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Stephanie Franklin. I'm actually an alumni of Hendricks Academy, where Dr. Hines was the principal. I am proud to say that every word that she says is the truth and a living testimony. I love to hear her voice because it reminds me of the things that she used to teach. In March, I will be 44 years old. My mother always said that she made it a point to research the type of school that she wanted her children to attend. And she called the Board of Education and she found out about Hendricks Academy and Dr. Hines. I am so appreciative of Dr. Hines because every morning, and if it wasn't every morning, again, I'm about to be 44, it was quite frequent that she had morning town hall meetings with her students. As she stated, it was not meeting her when we got in trouble. She met with her students every day, and she gave us life principles, life lessons. Just recently, one of our dear fellow Hendricks alumni passed away, and we all got together and we reminisced on those town hall meetings every day and how her words stick with us to this very day. To this very day, I won't wear gold jewelry because the school was on 43rd Street and they taught us, don't wear gold jewelry because they're snatching your gold jewelry. They're attacking you. I won't wear a certain name brand shoes because they taught us, we're on 43rd, don't wear these shoes to school. I'm 44. A lot of these things I still do not do because of what she taught us. So my subconscious is set. And so for all of my classmates who didn't have a strong family foundation, they had Hendricks Academy and they had Dr. Hines. Because if they weren't getting those lessons at home, they were getting them at the school. And here we are, 40 years later, our subconscious is set. So my concern right now is there is a case online that is going viral, and it has taken our hearts and emotions by storm. I don't know if you're familiar with Mahalia Harris in that case. It hurts me because she was from a broken home. And when you look into her story, there were generations of brokenness, and no one set her subconscious for her to say, no, I won't participate. No, I can't do this. No, I won't wear this. This isn't the music that I'm going to listen to. So it hurts me that the community failed. And my subconscious tells me, what can we do to fix this? Because the trial is set for March 7th, and they still haven't found this child's body. But in the midst of them looking for this child, they have found hundreds of other children's bodies within that vicinity. And I can only think, where have we dropped the ball? How have we lost so many children? And another big issue in this case that they keep bringing up is the technology issue. How many resources did she have? How many phones did she have? How many tablets did she have? Who was in charge of that technology? So I don't know if I have a question for you per se, but I guess it's a concern that we can all think of is, how can we sound the alarm to restabilize our communities and our culture? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I want to thank Reverend Moss for having me. And I also want to say, when I wrote the book, it was definitely to help young parents. And many times I see more grandparents than I see young parents. And so I definitely will continue with questions and workshop via Zoom if Trinity wants me to do it. I'd be happy because there are a lot of resources out here that I'd be happy to share that's on the website. And I agree with the young lady. We have, in general, dropped the ball. And one of the biggest things we can do is to get our children back in church. You got to bring them to church. And eventually, it will wear off, even if they don't want to come. I remember reading in one of Rashi's books, and I didn't even know it, that he said one of the most powerful influences on his life coming up as a child was Reverend Wright. Men was Reverend Wright. And I thought that that was powerful, and I thank God that I brought him to Trinity all those years. So I want to thank you all for staying. I want to thank Reverend Moss for having me. And the one thing I know is that we can do it. I believe in you. I believe in humanity. And I believe that God put us here for a reason. We just need to do like Michelle Obama said, let's do something. It's not that hard to love kids. Don't make it that hard. Just love them. Like she said, those kids knew that they were loved. I loved them. And she mentioned 40 years ago, I was probably 10. Don't try to guess my age. But it was important to me. I treated them like they were my kids. And I think more teachers, I did a lot of work in this book telling teachers what they need to do also, because they're yours. When they're in that classroom, they're yours. So the best advice I can give you is these babies are looking for love. So the greatest lover of all, I say, was God, because he gave his only begotten son, Jesus. So what are we willing to give? Maybe it's just a little bit of time. So I thank you that you've already committed to give some time and to get others to give time back to our children. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hines. This was wonderful. And we want you to continue with the work that you are doing. And I have a question. Can you teach us how to do the look? Yes. Can you do?
You remember I gave you the look one time. Wait, he don't want me to tell a story about him and Monica, so I won't do it. So basically, when you get out of hand, when children get, I wish a child was in here, but when you get out of hand, you squint your eyes a little bit. And also it works on adults. I've been at various sessions with children and adults, and you know how you're trying to get their attention because you want to talk, and they said, they get ready to holler. I said, oh no, we don't holler. I just give a look. Everybody comes.
Thank you, Dr. Hines. Let's have a word of prayer. We're going to close out. Lord God, we are grateful for the children that have been placed in our midst, the gift that you have blessed us with. For every time you want to liberate and save the world, you send a child, whether it is Moses or whether it is Jesus. And so we thank you for the wisdom of Dr. Hines and the work that she continues to do as we depart from this place, but never from your presence. May we always operate with love in connection to our children, to raise them into the adults that you desire them to be, not what the world wants them to be. We thank you and we love you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.